to it. You know, sometimes you gotta take it back.
Sooner or later, y'all come back to the old school. Old school, baby. He's right.
Hey, see that? Yeah, that's the way to do it.
That's old school.
Yeah, old school like the old school.
Yeah. It's old school.
We're going to train in a very particular way. We're going to train old school. None of this Pilates crap. I'm talking real old school. I'm talking Johnson, I'm talking Dempsey, I'm talking Lewis.
Change is a good thing, but sometimes you got to go back to the basics.
It's been my observation that in the end, the old school ways, they always seem to work out.
Old school is better.
Well, I always like showing that fun little mashup of the old school. It really shows you the ubiquitous nature of the term. And what I'm excited about as the founder of the old school, only technically, I don't go back that far, but it's that the younger generation likes it too. They like the term and they use the term, and so far it's been a very positive experience. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be with you. Dave, thanks for inviting me. And for the kind introduction, I want to start with a story. It goes all the way back to 1948.
That's when I was born.
I was not alive. Randy?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Randy was hanging out back then.
January 48.
But it was the same year that my boyhood hero, John Wooden, who's a famous college basketball coach. Probably most of you have heard his name or know of him quite a bit. But I read every book about him when I was a kid. He was already, I guess, fairly old at that time. Lived almost 100 years old, but there is a story about him in 1948 walking into the locker room his first year at UCLA, where he won 10 championships in his last 12 years. By the way, his final coaching salary in 1976 was $37,500. No telling what he could command today. But he had a very unique way of teaching. He walked into that locker room, as he did every locker room on the first day for the entire career, his entire career, with 2 pairs of tube socks that probably looked somewhat like this. You don't wear these anymore, I hope. But you can find anything on the internet. And he also walked in with a pair of high-top cloth Chuck Taylor basketball shoes. Now, my daughter, who's only 17, has a pair of pink Chuck Taylors she wore with her prom dress. So, I'm telling you, old school, never goes out of style, right? It eventually comes back, and I think that's a good thing. But he walked into that locker room and he said, "Gentlemen, I'm going to show you how." By the way, he was barefoot. "I'm going to show you how to put on your socks and your shoes." So he painstakingly did that very slowly, almost awkwardly. You can imagine the new freshmen being a little nervous watching their coach put on socks. But he did it so meticulously because he smoothed it out after he put the first one on, and then he put the second one on, and then he switched feet. Then he put on the high tops and showed them how to lace them up, tie a double knot. By the way, a little trivia, he always had his players wear shoes a half a size too small because it gave them better traction. It wore the shoe out quicker, but it gave them better traction and avoided blisters. So this was a man that was all about detail. And after he would do that little exercise, he would turn to him, and every time he would say, "Gentlemen, when we do the small things well, it allows the big things to come about." So what he was really saying, like most great coaches or teachers or mentors in our lives, he was saying it's about the fundamentals, right? Life is about the fundamentals. If you can do those well, then your chances of doing well are going to be great. There's my grandmother used to say, "Methods are many, principles are few." Methods are many, but principles are few. But methods change, and principles never do. Isn't that a great saying? Something to remember and bring back to this generation. And so let me just ask you, open it up for just a minute. What are some principles in life, personal life or business life, that don't change? Throw some out there.
Integrity.
Integrity.
Service.
Service. What else?
Consistency.
Consistency. Love that
Respect.
word. Respect.
Loyalty.
Relationships.
Loyalty, relationships. So it's not hard to come up with those, right? And it's interesting that I'm not going to recount the several that you chose there, but oftentimes, as some of you did, they're values, not just principles. In other words, they're deep core values. Now, what I've tried to do with the old school advantage, and the word advantage is the key word here, is to not only talk about the high-level values. We have a group of what we call our witnesses from history, people like Churchill and Mother Teresa, and the obvious ones like Lincoln and Washington and Franklin and Booker T. Washington. These are people that are of great character. Coach Wooden is one of them. Or have a certain virtue, like some of the ones you just mentioned, to be examples for this generation, because those are men and women that have been forgotten. And so to bring them into this time period, to give them an advantage, because what's happening is we live in a world where our attention is very diffused. And the primary reason are the rectangles in our lives, right? Think about all the things that are rectangle, and many of those are electronic in nature, aren't they? Absolutely. And if you don't think those have grabbed the attention of this generation, you haven't been paying attention. In fact, they're grabbing our attention, even those of us that are older now. And so we've got to combat that. And so the idea was, after I had a 30-year career in the financial services business, I sold my company. I said, all right, I want to write a book. It was my fourth book. The other ones were investing related. I want to write a book for my kids. And I'm going to take the 400 or 500 books I've read over the last decade, pull nuggets out of those books, and put them in one book so that when I'm dead and gone, which is inevitable, they'll have something practical to use to get them along in this life. Not just talking about virtues, because you can talk about those, but there's not any inherent action that comes with those. I'm talking about giving them real world, real life techniques and processes that they can use to be successful. Now here's the thing. They're all old school principles and processes and techniques. If they will apply them, you know what's going to happen? It's going to look new to the whole generation. That's right. And so the advantage, here's the bad news. This generation is lost in terms of their attention is gone. Their ability to have deep thinking is leaving this generation because they won't sit down and read books.
Am I the only one in this generation you're talking about?
Possibly, yes. It appears that way.
Are you a millennial?
Millennial.
Yeah, Jenna, I can
She's a
tell
marginal. She's a marginal.
Oh, now I'm marginal too.
Millennials go up to age 35, and by the way, Gen Z, Generation Z, the ones coming right behind them, who were literally born with Google already in existence. The millennials weren't, or the older millennials. But all of Gen Z was born into the Google age, Facebook age. They will be working in 5 years. They will be in the workforce in 5 years. Right?
What year do they start?
2000, between 2000 and 2003 birthdays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I wrote it for my kids. My publisher liked it and said, let's get it out there. I said, okay, great. One thing led to another, and I created an entity called The Old School. And so now we work with companies and organizations, churches and schools, et cetera, to kind of get these principles out there for use. But the advantage part comes in because these principles have been forgotten or not taught by our generation, the baby boomers and the older Gen Xers. That creates, on one hand, a difficulty for the generation, but a tremendous opportunity for those in this generation that will say, I'm going to go back and get those and use them today and see what happens. All right, so bad news is, wow, a lot of people are just going down the wrong road and they're not going to be all that successful. They're going to have a tough time in their career. But that percentage of sharp kids, sharp young adults and professionals that will use this, sky's the limit. In fact, their opportunity is even greater, I believe, than what it was for my generation. Because my generation largely knew these things and used them. Okay, and I'll give you some examples here in a moment, and it will become obvious what I'm talking about. Let me give you 3 examples. So I'm thinking about 3 companies that we worked with recently. One of them, the first one was an accounting firm. So they wanted to talk about, so we train their young professionals and older professionals too, as far as that goes. But they wanted to know, okay, we've lost some client opportunities, and here's what we've done. Analyze it and tell us what we can do different. Well, the thing that came out that was obvious, that could be changed immediately, was to implement in their practice what we call ready recall. Now, what is ready recall? Well, ready recall is a system of learning and remembering a list of items or a PowerPoint full of bullet points, memorizing those and knowing those backwards and forwards before you go into a presentation. So, let me posit something with you. No matter what you've learned, if you can't remember it when you need it, it's as though you never learned it. Isn't that sad? You ever hear the expression, that fine lady has already forgotten more than I ever learned about fill in the blank, right? Or that gentleman is, I'm glad I have hair at my age, but it's kind of in my face here. I have a stray. I think I got it. So if you don't have what you know when you need it, it doesn't matter. Now here's the other problem. When you read off of a PowerPoint or off of notes the entire time you're speaking, all right, really anybody can do that. Right? That's no different than anybody. So you don't have an advantage, you see. So I said, here's what we're going to do. The team that presents is going to know the presentation in their heart. Because what that will allow you to do is to look into their eyes, which are known as the windows to the soul. Right. Right. That's how we connect with people. Right? I can tell Don's looking at me right now, and he's 25 feet away. Because we were created with this phenomenal ability to look at the whites of someone's eyes and see where they're looking, even if they're far away. Right? You know the old thing, don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes? Well, that actually meant something because they wanted them to be looking a certain... When you see the whites of someone's eyes, like I can't see Don's whites very well.
They were in range, actually.
So, yeah. Oh,
Back then.
There you
and
go,
also
yeah.
We're probably out of bullets.
Maybe.
I'm not joking. That's where it came from because they were out of bullets on a hill.
And they were just charging.
And so the idea was wait till you could see their whites because if you can see their whites, there's no way you're missing.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
the accuracy of the weapons at that time.
So this is like an old school laboratory here. I'm getting
right.
nice job. It's like a think tank.
She's not even an old school member.
No, she is, but no, she's old school. It's not about age. I know a lot of guys our age that are not old school.
That's right. She's definitely old school.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's military, that's why.
Right. And so that's what we did, because if you know your presentation, you're able to look at somebody, what are they thinking as you're giving the presentation?
You care.
You care.
You know your stuff.
You know, that's the main thing, isn't it? You know your stuff. The other guys came in and looked like this at a PowerPoint. It's on the back of their head.
Right.
And then they would turn to you, and then they would go back. And you went in, and your practice is who you are. And that is part of you. So it evokes this level of confidence. And that's one example of using it. If you're going into a job interview, so you're trying to teach your kids here's how you interview. Chapter 6 of my book is all about interviewing. And one of the things we tell them is you want to go on the website of the prospective company, learn about their values, what's important to them, put it in the memory palace. So that's what the technique is called. The ready recall technique is called memory palace. 2,500 years old, by the way. The Greeks came up with that. I didn't come up with that. They did. And but you put it in the memory palace, and then you go in and present. The audience will never know you did that, but they're going to appreciate you that you did the research. So you not only know them very well, but you know yourself well also. So the more eye contact you maintain with an audience, whether it's an audience of 1 or 12 or 1,200, the more eye contact you can make increases the chances of you getting that business. Another one that we dealt with was in my field. It was in the field of wealth management. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to institutionalize an old school concept known as words that wow. And what does that mean? Well, the first thing we need to do in this generation, and even with ourselves, I'm sure I've already slipped up since I've been talking to you, is we need to scrub our vocabulary. Now, I'm not talking about scrubbing, the foul words, that kind of goes without saying. We'd like to do that. I'm talking about words that are crutches or bridges that we don't need. So, someone give me an example of the
Like.
kind. All right, that's probably the worst offender, isn't it?
Really?
Like really.
The word like.
Like.
I'm okay with really because you're
Really and
you're
very,
trying to
take it
express-
away.
Yeah, you're trying to express something, but like,
You know.
it's
Oh,
probably
God.
more from our generation. Comes from our generation. So, what's another one that stands out?
There's one that I always hear all the time.
You're not going to like this one because I promise you all use it. But you'll use it less after this speech. It's not It's a great word.
Anyway,
Now,
Whatever.
so
have you ever, has anybody ever told you this? When you drive down the street, you're going to hate me for this. When you drive down the street and you see a blue reflector, what is that?
Fire hydrant.
It's a fire hydrant. It's right there. Now, this entire holiday weekend, you're going to be seeing blue reflectors.
I've never seen a blue reflector.
You're going to now.
Red
Yeah.
reflector.
You're going to now. Yeah. I wish I had done that this now, but I did it
So
to
what's the
myself
word?
as well. The word is awesome.
Oh, awesome.
We all use it. It's a great word. But it's such a great word, shouldn't it be reserved for that is truly awesome? Right? Because what happens when the word awesome is overused over and over and over? What happens to the meaning of it?
Awesome.
It doesn't mean anything. Right? I don't know if there are any Seinfeld fans in here. Yeah, do you remember the episode where there was the baby and
The ugly baby.
Elaine's doctor friend said, "What a beautiful baby," and then he saw the next baby and he said, "What a beautiful baby." He said, "That's not a beautiful." So he just called every baby a beautiful baby. So it lost its meaning, right? Sorry, that's a pretty arcane example, but we got a couple of Seinfeld fans that got it.
Really.
Same thing that happens with awesome. When you say awesome over and over and over again, it means nothing. And so what we did with this wealth management team, we said, look, we've got 30 words and phrases, and they're in the book in chapter 2, 30 words and phrases that we want to inculcate into your culture. We want to institutionalize these words. Okay? And how do you do that? The first thing is we scrub those other words. And now, instead of the word awesome, how about exceptional or extraordinary or phenomenal? There's so many words.
Expialidocious.
There you go. Yes. But there are so many words that can be substituted and rotated for those. Now, a young person that's 24, 25 years old that comes into your office, and when you tell them something, they say, well, that's exceptional. You have to stop for a second and say, did that word just come out of his mouth? Right? Because what are you expecting?
Awesome.
cool.
Every time you're expecting awesome. Or every single time.
I'll give you a real example.
Okay.
My stepdaughter, who's a millennial, we had dinner with them the other night, and she goes, "Oh, this food is delicious." And I've noticed she uses the word delicious. You don't hear that much versus, "Oh, this food's really good," or "This
Yeah.
is
Really good.
awesome,"
Yeah.
versus "This is really delicious." I'm like,
So
She's a
you see how
gourmet.
that stands out?
"Yeah, it did."
So it's just a subtle thing. Remember Coach Wooden? The sock, remember? It's the little things that allow the great things to come about. So if you could see a culture, company culture changing, and the reason we did 30, it's real simple. There are 30 days in most months, with the exception of one, at least 30 days in every month except February. And so we'll take a word or a phrase, and that'll be the word, the phrase of the day in that office. Now what happens? What do you think happens? They laugh, they have fun with it, they overuse it. But here's what's going on. A professor by the last name of Kahneman wrote a book, Thinking Big and Small, I think is what it was called. But he talked about how to go from system 1 to system 2 thinking. Now let me define those two, actually from 2 to 1. System 2 thinking is when you really have to think about it. It's when you're learning to drive a car, ride a bike, a quadratic equation. These are things you really have to think about to learn them. But once you learn them, they move into system 1, and you can do it without thinking about it. That's the definition. Now, I'm going to submit that the definition of intelligence is moving as many things from system 2 to system 1 as you can. And here's the kicker. Everything you learn can be moved from 2 to 1. All right? That's why an engineer doesn't have to think about some math, because they've seen it and it's automatic. Okay? All right, so with that in mind, then by overusing and having fun with these words and phrases one a day for a month, or maybe you do that for 3 months, when you're in front of the client, guess what comes out? Just the right words or just the right phrase. There's a song that says, a fit word is like apples of gold on platters of silver. Right? Yeah. Twain said that the difference between the right word and the almost right word is the difference between a firefly and lightning. And so words are the most powerful thing in life. Right? They have the power of life and death, another proverb says. So, your organization needs to get their words right. And over time, it'll make a tremendous difference. Because clients and prospects will come out of your office thinking, I don't know what it is about those people. Well, I know what it is. They're looking you in the eye the whole time. They're not using awesome and like. And you're not used to seeing that. In other words, they've got an advantage. Right? So that's an example of what we did with a wealth management firm. Now I want to show you another. I'm still not the. Yeah, just go to another film, and I want to watch you this film, and then I'll tell you about the third organization that we worked with. It's the next one.
This one?
Yeah, let's see if that will. That'll play. This is a commercial you may have seen recently. Looks like. You need to go over here.
How many non-millennials does it take to get the video
I was
playing?
going to say, we may have to have the millennial right in here on a white horse to...
Let him sweat, Jenna.
Yeah, we're good. All right, watch this. New commercial, you may have seen it. I want to talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're there.
I love this.
Packed my bags last night, pre-flight.
There's all
0 hour, 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high as a kite by again. It's lonely hours, please.
commercial awards. That is a tremendous story. I don't know any Samsung products, but that makes me want to, right? Yeah, there you go.
Just bought one.
So what you just saw there is a corporate narrative in the form of a commercial in this case. It doesn't have to be, but it was. And they can be very short. Let me ask you, what is a corporate narrative, or what do you think about or experience every time you go through Chick-fil-A's drive-thru? What do they say after you say thank you?
Pleasure to serve you.
My pleasure. Did you know that's a corporate narrative for them? Because everybody knows it. It's a very successful one. They say my pleasure instead of
Thank you.
or the dreaded no problem.
Yeah.
Right? Don't let your kids and grandkids say no problem, or your employees. That's tantamount to saying, there was a problem, now that I've thought about it, there's not a problem. No problem, right? That's the embedded understanding there. My pleasure. Thank you. Or, I'm sorry, you're welcome. That's a corporate narrative. Here's one that years ago with Nations Bank, and it's been NCMB and Nations Bank, and now I think it's Bank of America. But years ago, I had a client who was a high up with them, an executive with them, and he said they would teach everyone from the first person you saw as you came in the bank, the greeter, to the CEO in the corner office, they would all know 2 stories about Bank of America. Anybody work for Bank of America in here ever? Okay, always ask that. And here were the 2 stories. When Walt Disney needed a loan, he went to 103 different banks. The 104th bank said yes, and it was our bank, Bank of America. I'm acting like I'm working for them. We also gave the loan to build the Golden Gate Bridge during the Depression when nobody else would do it. All right, now, what is that corporate narrative? I work for a bank who is responsible for 2 of the greatest American icons in history. Don't I want to tell people about that? And is banking competitive at all? Right? And is there much difference? I mean, a checking account, a CD, a mortgage?
No.
There's not much difference. What makes the difference?
People in the
It's the
bank.
people and the story, the corporate narratives behind the people. Now, my understanding is they've stopped doing that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I do business with Chase Bank and I'm personal with people in the bank, my branch, but I've never heard any story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just they all
Right.
seem to be very open and willing and
Yeah.
friendly and accommodating,
Right.
with exceptions.
So now, if institutions have stopped doing that, there is a tremendous opportunity to get an advantage. And so we went into an insurance company, asked all the advisors or the agents their funniest or oddest or whatever claim story. You know who does this well? Farmers. The dog jumping in the lake or the couple sitting there on the romantic beach.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. They're telling you corporate narratives about their customers. Now, when you see those
We've been there.
commercials, what are you feeling?
Connected.
Connected. I've either been, see, those are human stories, actual stories. By the way, this is a story that not only is not true, it can't be true.
Right.
And you've still got chill bumps. You see how powerful stories are? So it's about creating a corporate narrative, and everybody has a great corporate narrative. All of your life stories are extraordinarily interesting, and I mean that sincerely. You just hadn't told them. Right? But I could sit down with any of you, talk about your life, and within a couple hours we'd have a personal narrative that would be very interesting. And maybe it's something you could use in your business as well. I know you've got all kinds of stories.
Oh, yeah.
From the travelers, right? And how you bailed them out. You tell me one story about how you saved somebody in, wherever, the Middle East, or they lost their luggage or whatever. And I'm thinking, Lisa, is it Lisa? That's the one I wanted, right? Yeah, you tell me one story about an infestation of bees in the wall and how you got it out, and people are interested. Oh, wow, how in the world did you get that out? Well, let me tell you, here's what we did. They don't have bees. They're never going to have bees, but you told them about your expertise without telling them about your expertise. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's what a corporate narrative is all about, and this one was a great one. And the whole thing about corporate narratives is really what you're trying to do. And you'll notice those are all 3 left brain industries: wealth management, insurance, accounting. I mean, any accountants in here?
No.
Recovering accountant.
Okay. All right. So can I tell an accountant joke and you won't hate me?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, most accountants I know went into accounting because they didn't have the personality to be an undertaker.
That's good.
He's not laughing. He lied to me. He said I could tell when he's not laughing.
What's a busload of lawyers going off a cliff? A good start. Right? I told that to her husband.
You know, my wife's a lawyer.
Yeah?
Yeah, she is, but I
As long
think
as she's not a hockey player.
That's funny.
Because that's another story.
She knows more jokes than I do
Yeah.
about lawyers. But anyway, those are decidedly the left brain industries really have a hard time with corporate narratives, right? And so the mantra there that we try to get across is you've got to get off the charts and into their hearts. Because see, charts are safe places, aren't they? They're safe. Because math is always true.
Sure.
Doesn't matter what country, what time, we can all agree on math. That's about the only thing in life we can agree on. Okay? So if I can stay there where I don't have to get out of my comfort zone, then I want to stay there. That's where you naturally want to stay. But it's the ones that get out of their comfort zone and go for the hard that get the advantage. Yes, sir?
It's interesting. Of course, in Legal Shield is a direct sales company.
Uh-huh.
And I come from the accounting and military background. I come from the accounting world.
Okay.
And the hardest part for me is that one area.
Yeah.
And in our training and everything I've been through, there's a saying, you probably heard it, facts tell and stories sell.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the hardest part for me has been adapting that story sell methodology.
Right. Yeah. So what I've done here, we teach a course mostly inside organizations, but it's called the 10 Keys to Professional Success. So those are 3 of them that we talk about: storytelling, words that wow, and then what was my first one? Ready recall, learning something that you need when you need it. Let's watch one more video. Looks like I'm in pretty good shape on time. Okay.
We want to just leave time for questions.
Yeah, this is a 2-minute video. I'll have one more, or we'll take some questions, and I'll have one more comment. We'll do one more again.
There it is. This is the thank you letter I received right when he was leaving college.
This is a letter my husband and I received after our son Tyler died.
This is a letter I got the year that I retired, after I was drafted.
This is what Peyton wrote to me right before the Super Bowl. I hope this letter finds you well.
I was looking at some pictures yesterday, and it made me think of you.
We've had a wonderful 7 years together.
It has been an honor to have called you a teammate for 13 years.
I'm grateful for your love and support, and I know you have my back. I feel like we've had a special bond.
It has been a privilege to watch you play over your career, and I'm honored to call you a friend.
You did it the right way.
And I knew that you loved to win and hated to lose with the same passion as me.
You know I've always looked up to you.
To play as long as you did and at such a high level is incredible.
You've taught me a lot.
I have great respect for your work ethic and team-first attitude.
It wasn't always easy.
Some things you just can't control. It's okay.
You're the best teammate I could ever ask for.
It was an honor to play with you in Indy and again in Denver.
To be Broncos together.
Brothers.
It's been a great ride.
Keep grinding.
I wish you all the best in the next chapter of your life.
Congratulations again.
Tell the family hello.
Love you, pal.
I'm proud of you.
Sincerely.
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 I tell young people, if they'll write one handwritten note for the rest of their career, there's no way they can fail. I was visiting a little over a year ago with a Fortune 500 HR director. You don't get to that position unless you've done a lot of interviewing on both sides of the desk. And I asked her, in all of your years, how many people sent you a thank you note after the interview? She shocked me. You know how many people had sent her a note? 3. And I said, how many got the job of those 3? All 3. It was all 3. Now, they were otherwise qualified, obviously.
Right.
Probably wouldn't even have been interviewing. And that's not a scientific study there, but you get the point. And so we teach a class on the art of the handwritten note, everything from materials and what to say to whom and when, to some exceptional concepts that get attention every time. And so my card, I forgot to bring a card, it's inside the envelope actually, but it's a parchment type, kind of a rough paper. Okay. I always use a brown pen anytime I'm signing a book or writing a card. What other famous documents were written in brown?
The Declaration of Independence.
Our founding documents. Now a little trivia, any Aggies in the room? Whoop! All right, did you know the original ink color was maroon and it faded to brown? So just put that in your pocket and bring it out when you need it, right? And then I have, you can kind of see the old paper bag, grocery paper bag envelope.
Note that it was not burnt orange.
There you go. There you go. Kind of looks like it now, but I don't know. But anyway, have a paper bag kind of envelope. And then if you can't see it,
Plastic seal.
I've got a
Wax
seal, wax seal. That we actually put the wax on it, use a seal. You know how many times I get a comment on that? That takes 2 stamps, and by the way, I'll use Trivia stamps, always use nostalgia stamps. Old pickup trucks. In our seminar, we talk about Batman a lot. I'll send Batman stamps if you've been to my workshop. Purple hearts for
American
military
flag.
personnel.
American flag all the time.
American flag is very common, so I don't use it as much. But I'll use a purple heart, a president, something of that nature, a golf stamp if they're a golfer, anything I can do to connect. And we'll teach that on the top, put a quote about somebody that you know they respect. If they're a golfer, who just died not too long ago? Arnold Palmer. So I might put an Arnold Palmer quote because that will connect with them. And then I'll write the note again in brown. But these notes, handwritten notes, are so important. We put together what we call the Scale of Connectedness. And it goes from, just to give it to you real quick, on a scale of 1 to 10, it starts at texts at 1, and then it goes to email at 3, because you can do more with an email. Then what do you think's next after email?
Facebook message?
Connecting with them.
LinkedIn.
No, it's not even that. It's old school.
I mean, call, pick them on the phone, or meet
It's
them
telephone.
someplace.
Yeah, telephone. That's about a 6 out of 10. 9 out of 10 is face-to-face. You know what gets a 10 out of 10? A handwritten note. Even though you're not there and you don't get the body language. One, when you give a handwritten note, you're giving the gift of your time. 15 minutes versus 15 seconds in a text.
How do you determine those?
What do you mean?
Well, like the email being above a text message or even a Facebook message.
Well, in the
How do
case,
you do marketing? Like, nobody's going to let you into their text message or their Facebook message. Like, at the point that you are in that level of relationship,
yeah.
y'all are much closer than an email. Like, maybe it's my generation. Email,
Yeah.
nobody wants it. It is at the
Well, it
bottom.
is generational, and that's why it's low.
Right.
On
Yeah.
so maybe you've taught me something. I need
Like,
to
do you want a
insert.
marketer in your text message?
Well, unless you, but if you gave them your phone number, if they gave you their phone number and said, call me anytime if
Right.
you have any questions, and then you respond
But that's
with
what
a
I'm
text.
saying. That puts
They've
the
let
text
you in.
above an email, though.
Yeah.
Like, anybody can
An
email
email's on the
him.
bottom of the rung for me.
Yeah, email.
Yeah.
Anyone can email him, but how many people does he give his personal cell phone
Right.
number to?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about in terms of connecting. In other words, the amount of information you can disseminate
Right.
in order to connect with them on a personal level. I should have been more clear on that.
Mhm.
It's talking about personal level. That's why the card, even though you lose the body language, you use the word, the real-time conversation, you don't throw those away. I've got drawers full of those at home and at the office. You keep them. And studies have shown, and I'm sure you would agree, that when you take it out and read it again, it means even more to you the second or third time you read it than it did the first, right? So it's golden. This generation's not doing it. My kids do it. Other
works for
young people
marketing,
that do
too.
that are just gonna, they've got an advantage.
I got a call from a client. I'm scheduled to meet with Tuesday for an email, or no, I'm sorry, email, a handwritten letter I sent in December.
Oh, well, there you go.
Didn't get their attention the first time around.
Yeah.
But it sat around somewhere.
There you go. What questions can I, just time for a couple of questions here, if you've got them, and then we'll wrap it up.
What is your thoughts these days on, because people communicate, like I've noticed more over the last 6-8 months that like I'll have a professional meeting with someone,
Right.
and they give me their phone number or
Uh-huh.
whatever, and then like, well, texting is, so it's kind of like, seems like, used to we would pick up the phone,
Yeah.
call them, do the follow-up, and do things like that, but now there's like this intrusion factor.
Yes.
Seems like, and now we're going to text to get a prompt response.
Yeah, there definitely is an intrusion factor, but to Jenna's point, if you can't get their phone number, handwritten note is an indirect.
Right, but I was just
Yeah.
curious, what
But then
was
you
your
have to have their
opinion on,
address.
Yeah,
on
that's-
even
Well, if you have their
using,
business card,
even
it
using
would be
text
on their
though,
address.
like you're
Doesn't
trying to
always-
communicate,
Oh,
do you
why
even
not?
teach using text
You
though?
don't use a
Yeah,
business address on it?
It's like a walkie-talkie to me.
Okay.
That's what I would call it from being younger. It's walkie-talkie
Right,
communication.
right, good point.
Very convenient. Great to be able to keep up with my daughters when they're somewhere.
Do you know about Marco Polo?
I've heard that.
It's
Yes.
more of a true walkie-talkie.
Oh yes, I
with
have.
video.
Yes, I have
It's
seen that.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's
One other question, yes, sir.
I'm in dealing with millennials and having granddaughters and grandsons that are millennials. I know that a lot of them haven't even learned cursive.
Yeah.
They stopped teaching
Yes.
it.
They're
They
dropping
stopped
it.
teaching.
Yeah.
Right.
They're dropping it, right?
But you know what? That's another opportunity. You get a cursive card from a young person, and you're somebody our age. You're impressed. I'm telling you.
If he sent it to someone their age, though, no one can read it. Really secret code for old people.
I think they can read cursive, but my question is, should you be sending a thank you note to millennials in cursive, or do you send it in black
You send it in whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay.
They'll be able to read it. It's not a foreign language yet to them.
You can print too.
Yeah,
It makes more of an impact.
Yeah.
It's different.
By the way, the book is a great.
Send it in italics.
Yeah, I would love to stay here another hour and just chat, but I know we're on the clock and we got work to do to get out of here for the weekend. I'll just tell you that the book is a great graduation gift for both high school seniors and college seniors. High school seniors can use it. The appendix is full of study tips. We've got a workshop called How to Get a 4.0 in College, as well as time management. 44% of college kids don't get a degree, and the primary reason is time management. They've never had to manage their time, so we've got that in there as well. And then for graduating seniors, Chapter 6 is all about interviewing. The top 10 most asked interview questions, and then more importantly, the 13 reverse interview questions that you as an interviewee ask them. Right? That's where the power of the interview is. So, anyway, any birthdays in here today?
Tomorrow.
Huh? Tomorrow.
Mine was Sunday.
Any just curious, any military veterans in here? Wow, look at this. Great. Super. Well, thank you for your service. Tell me your name one more time, I'm sorry. John. All right. So, you've got a choice of this fine book with incredible wisdom in it, or this wonderful, softest, favorite T-shirt you'll ever have right there that says the old school on it.
My favorite
Which would you prefer?
Graduating, I think that book would make a great graduation gift.
Right. There you go. So, John, you have the wisdom of Solomon. So you know what's going to happen right now? You're going to get both.
Thank you so much.
I don't know if that's
Stephen chose the T-shirt with the wisdom of Solomon.
But you know what? Nobody ever does. Or not so far. It's going to ruin my little shtick there.
You missed one of the closing questions. The question was, how much are the books?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. By the time you pay postage and all that stuff, they're $30 online. I'm selling them for $20 here, and I'll autograph them for you. Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
30 seconds?
Absolutely.
One of my favorite things we teach the young people is the idea that with every challenge comes an equal or greater opportunity. So we created a challenge coin, right? Police officers, firemen,
Military,
commanders
give these. Yeah, they give these. Mine's not as important as theirs, but it may be the only one that says challenge on it. I don't know. But on one side it says challenge, and the other side it says opportunity. So here's the lesson. In life, in the coin flip of life, sometimes it comes up opportunity. So what do you do with that?
Turn it. You go with it.
You take it.
Right.
Yeah, you go for it. And then when it comes up, as it most often does, challenge, what's that?
It's an opportunity.
It's an opportunity. So you're playing with a two-sided coin if you have this attitude in life. Right? I want to give this to you for inviting me.
Oh, thank you.
Right.
Yeah,
Awesome.
my pleasure. And again, thanks for inviting me. And I hope we can cross paths again soon.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
This is the one I feel like everyone skips. I mean, they just completely skip over it. This is your market research. This isn't even the end of my checklist. You can't even read it up here. It's kind of a big deal. I want you to know everything about your market.